Well, thank you for joining me today. Well, today it is Thursday. It's October the 15th, and I hope your Thursday is going well. If you're watching this video, then that means as you're watching it, I want to say thank you for all who do and comments that are made. We appreciate it very much, and I mean that. And hopefully we can be a help to you, and some of you say that we are, and we're grateful for that. We start our series on Monday entitled Being Prepared. It's a very general statement to make. I understand that, and to be honest with you, the Bible doesn't use the word itself a lot, and yet think about it, being prepared. And so we're going to talk from the book of Luke chapter 12 today and try to be a blessing, be a help, to be a challenge, to be quite honest with you. These are days in which, things happen. We didn't see it happening, but you know what? In general, the child of God ought to be prepared for everything and anything. And I think that's kind of the attitude we want to talk about that today. So Luke chapter 12, verse number 47, there's obviously a lot we could read to this parable. I'm just going to read the one verse and then make some points. It says, "And that servant which knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes." Now you can look at that, and there's two ways this could be looked at, honestly. Obviously, when you're talking about the Lord and a servant, as a child of God, we're the servant. Of course, he's the Lord. He's the master. We understand that. And he does have a will for our life. You could also look at this, that the Lord could be speaking from the standpoint that the Lord came to Israel. And the Lord's will, of course, is for Israel to believe and to do his will. And obviously, the big missing thing that keeps someone from doing the will of God, of course, is to believe. When someone doesn't believe and they're not a child of God, then they're not going to be that servant. And thus, it could be the reason for the statement there, being beaten with many stripes. But let's look at it from the Christian standpoint, from the child of God standpoint. The Lord Jesus Christ, he is that. That is his title. Now, bear in mind, if someone believes or doesn't believe, it doesn't change his title. But certainly as a child of God, he is the Lord. And he does have a will for our life. And in general, it's the same for everybody, but there are some specific things for each and every individual. But let's just look at it from being prepared. Let's realize that God has a will for our life. Are you prepared to do that each day? What are the things that you do on a daily basis to be prepared so that if the Lord was to use you in some degree or another, how prepared are you? Well, let's look at from the standpoint of winning the lost. Now, I realize that people work jobs, and sometimes there's difficult situations where you're just not able to witness as we think about that in the official sense, to go out and witness. Now, I think there ought to be times where we make the time to do that. I understand that, but understand there's also times in which we're in positions you may make a statement that may not be necessarily, quote, going down the Romans road, as we call it, and giving a salvation plan. But it does mean that people come up with conversations and you're able to express, who you are as a Christian and doing it in a very wise way. Are you prepared to do that? How prepared are you when negative things are spoken? This political climate that we're living in, boy, there's a lot of things that can be said on both sides. How prepared are you to speak as you should speak, to speak certainly properly? We've called our devotional series, the whole thing, we've entitled it Seasoned Grace. I take that from Colossians chapter 4. Let your conversation be always with grace, seasoned with salt. So you don't have to forfeit anything, but certainly wisdom there and speaking grace that can help somebody, but also sometimes to help somebody to see where they may be in the wrong position. I'm not talking about having big arguments about who to vote for and all these things, but I'm saying how prepared are you to speak and to speak in such a way where you can say what you need to say and also refrain from what you need to say. So I'm saying that, how prepared are you to do that? So we're talking about doing the Lord's will. And the Lord's will, of course, is to be an influence in this world. And speaking of this political environment that we live in, one of the reasons why we're talking about these things, we're talking about up until November 3rd, is to be prepared for that time. Not only what to say, but also to vote. And you say, well, I'm going to vote by absentee ballot, or if I receive a ballot, some unsolicited ballot. However you do it, we want you to vote. I think it's, to be personally honest with you, I believe it's better to go to the polling place in the traditional sense and go ahead and vote. That's what me and my wife have always done, and that's what we'll plan on doing. If you say I'm just deathly afraid of getting the COVID-19, then of course you do the necessary things, but again, don't be disengaged, but be prepared. So all that to say, we're just trying to in general get people prepared to do the will of God. That's things you do on a daily basis, regardless of whether it's November the 3rd, an election year, or whether or not you get up and it's just people you meet or someone who you may meet that you may never meet again. I often said that when I go soul winning. I've met you And for some reason, God has allowed our paths to cross. I may never see you again. This may be our only time that we've met. And I'd like to make that encounter the right encounter and the proper encounter. So all that to say, let's be prepared. We certainly want to be prepared to do the Lord's will. We don't want to disappoint Him. We don't want Him to be disappointed in us. And these are days in which we definitely need to be prepared for basically anything. You understand that. So we hope you have a great Thursday. Until tomorrow, have a wonderful day.